Welcome to Cosmic Scene with Jill Jardine. I'm your host, Jill Jardine, longtime astrologer, psychic, healer, and yogi. In this exciting episode, my guest is SL-369, Cryptocurrency Clairvoyant, sharing her insights and asking questions of me about the astrological trajectory in cryptocurrency during late March and early April. So stay tuned. Welcome to the episode on cryptocurrency featuring my guest SL-369, Cryptocurrency Clairvoyant, who will share her insights on the crypto market. Make sure you stay tuned till the end of the episode when SL-369 shares her hot tips on crypto coins to watch out for in the coming weeks during this crypto boom. SL-369 is a cryptocurrency clairvoyant who has been channeling visions about cryptocurrency coins since 2018. SL-369 has an 80 to 85% accuracy with her crypto visions. SL stands for Starseed and Lightworker. The number 369 was inspired by Nikola Tesla's theory that these numbers are the key to the universe. SL-369 shares her crypto visions on Telegram, Twitter, and her YouTube channel. SL-369 has a very active Patreon site where she shares her crypto dreams and visions daily. Check it out at www.patreon.com/SL369crypto. Her Twitter is twitter.com/cryptosl369. Check out her YouTube channel. And her Telegram is t.me/SL369crypto. We're pleased to have back our guest, SL-369. Welcome, SL. What's cooking in the cryptocurrency world? Our listeners are anxious to hear.
Hi there, Jill. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm very well. How was your trip to Arizona?
Yes. So we've been to the fifth dimension and back, and I had some cryptocurrency downloads, what was going on while I was in the heightened frequencies, and I'm ready to share them in the podcast. So I will listen to what your questions are, and you can cue me to what to say. And you are going to share a lot, too, for our listeners of what you've been receiving as intel about crypto.
Yes. So can we talk about the month of March? It's almost over.
Right.
But I'm curious, we were talking off mic that astrology is not black and white. It's based on interpretation. So two astrologers can look at Bitcoin chart and then there would be like two different predictions.
Right. That's such a great point, because we've got some astrologers who can be more looking at things from a grim view or more of a very cookbook astrology. Saturn and Mars are together. That's going to be restrictive. But then there's people who actually, like myself, I have worked with astrology for many years, but also I work with intuition, and I've had a lot of experience reading different charts. So everything is up to interpretation and the consciousness of the astrologer. And so some may be more precautionary and err to the side of caution, and others may be like, if people's consciousness shift to that of the abundance and they look at this as perhaps a prosperous time, that they may create this as a reality. Remember, we can create our reality with consciousness. But unfortunately, during March of 2022, we had a planetary war, and we had a war in Russia and Ukraine. Well, Russia invaded Ukraine. So that did a lot to the collective consciousness to sort of dampen out people's hopes and optimism and put them in fear. Again, another 3D matrix trick to keep people worried and in fear. And of course, that would affect the way the markets, we see the traditional stock market not going up, being, not very high, plunging at times. And we see the same thing with crypto. So I would say it's not really, we want to use the tools of astrology. We want to use the tools of intuition. We want to use the tools of psychic abilities to predict these markets. But a lot of it has to do with where the collective vibe is. Like if people are, it doesn't look good, I'm not going to invest as much, that's going to affect. Now, the planetary war was a huge factor in March, and now I'm talking to people about it. A lot of people really suffered in their economic life because Venus, which is the planetary indicator of financial growth, abundance, prosperity, Venus, which is indicated by the Lakshmi principle in Vedic astrology, the goddess of abundance, she was stomped out by Mars. Mars, the war god, was really cramping Venus's Venusian blessings of money from crypto. So some of us astrologers not see how difficult that was going to be for the crypto market, and some did. They erred to the side of caution, which in this case was good that they did because Mars took control and put out Venus's prosperity light.
I see. So then, yeah, the market actually turned around for the last few days, and it has been really bullish. It has gone up a lot. Certain coins has gone up by a lot of percentage.
Yeah, it's catch-up time. I had been predicting that by mid-month, the crypto market would rally. But again, we had human interference by a war and other restrictions. And so now it's time to catch up. I kind of predicted that. I was off with the date of when it would rally, but here we are, the end of March. You know, I do see the Aries new moon on April 1st as being very, very good. That's triggering several planets in Aries, as well as harmonizing with the Aquarian planets. I think that's going to really push things up April 1st to the 4th. And I actually see a pretty good run here through the beginning of April, through about the 14th.
Then what's going on with April 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th?
Well, the problem with that is the 4th is a very tenuous time. There's some good, some bad around the 4th. We've got Venus going into Pisces. Venus loves Pisces. It's a sign that she can luxuriate in, and it's one of the places where Venus is exalted. So I think Venus, again, the indicator of prosperity and monies, will do well in Pisces, even though it's a more spiritual sign. However, we have Saturn, the karmic lord, and the restrictor is going to be with Mars. So we're going to probably see an uptick in violence around that time. And the Russia-Ukraine situation could actually look worse, which puts fear into people. That could cramp the trajectory of expansion that Venus and Pisces wants to bring to us. And then on April 10th, we have Mercury transiting into Taurus, which brings the focus on money. And I do think there is some making up for lost time. Mercury is moving direct, moving very fast as well. So this could bring the focus back into people investing in cryptocurrency. It's all about security, trying to get secure for the future. And people are going to look around and say, hey, crypto has paid out in the past. I think it was going to pay out again, and let's do it. Let's go. Even though we may be cautionary and fearful, we know that it will pay out before mid-month. So the Mercury in Taurus is probably going to help quite a bit. But yeah, I mean, the 3rd, 4th, 5th, cautionary because of Saturn-Mars conjunction.
So cautionary, does it translate to a pullback, a corrections? What's going on?
A bit of a correction, yeah. It's almost like whatever the upward trajectory is, it may halt a little bit for those couple days. There's going to be something around war. The other thing that I had predicted way back in January of 2022, at the beginning of this year, I saw that Saturn and Mars conjunction in Aquarius as interfering with cyber attacks or bringing in cyber attacks, which crypto is also very vulnerable to cyber attacks. And now they're even saying that Russia is looking at going after America with cyber attacks, and they actually need money to fund their cause, their war machine. They need money, and apparently where they've been cut off with other funding, crypto is still accessible, and of course they may want to go in and try to hack into all kinds of accounts. So I think that has to be a red flag for people, and that's what could be hindering the market here around the 4th, 5th, and 6th of April. If there is a cyber attack and some kind of crypto crypto platform is hacked, which I think is quite the possibility since I saw that back in January.
If there's a hack, then it's going to be a big correction. So based on the astrology, how does it look for the 3rd, 4th, and 5th for April?
Again, it's a mixed bag. The Venus in Pisces organically would look like a good indicator for financial well-being coming back in the crypto market. However, the same day, the Saturn-Mars conjunct in Aquarius is an indicator of perhaps cyber attacks, Mars aggressor, Saturn on some structure. Aquarius rules cyberspace. So there we go. I think there might be some kind of event that scares people and could make a correction. But then by the time we get into later that week, around the 6th to the 10th, with Mercury going into Taurus, people are going to realize that, like, well, I'm in a safety and security are going to get really big in the middle of the month. And if people feel safe or they see a coin becoming a little bit more consistent, they're going to go more in with it, because make hay while the sun rises, make hay before the eclipse window opens at the end of the month, and things will really get interfered with.
Then after, we see the 10th into like the 3rd week of April, what's going on with the market?
Yeah, so that could be actually a really good time, because the 10th is when Mercury goes into Taurus. Mars goes into Pisces. It leaves Aquarius. So it's going to chill out. Mars and its warlike behaviors and the fact it's been stoking the fires of war in erratic Aquarius since March 6th. April 14th, when Mars goes into Pisces, that could really chill it out and could help. We could see some resolution coming with the Ukrainian situation. So that's going to build a lot of confidence. And that confidence will build through the full moon of April 16th, which leads into Easter. So we have all this energy coming into the planet. Basically, it's a heightened solar festival and lunar festival, the solar festival being Easter, the resurrection, the rebirth, if you will, the spring festival. And then we have a full moon with Sun in Aries and Moon in Libra, which will be seeking balance. And that is going to be a pretty good cycle, except for then we're getting into the end of the month, and again, originally I said, what's the best time to take profit? I'm kind of looking at I kept seeing 4s back a couple months ago, and I was like April 4th, 4-4. Now I'm looking and I'm like, 14th, when Mars goes into Pisces and releases all that pressure and worry and fear about the war and the markets. However, things will come to a head with the full moon, and then we start going into the 2-week window of the eclipse, which I always had said is traditionally a time when markets, especially crypto, in the last couple cycles of eclipses last spring and fall, it was curtailing any upward trajectories.
So then if people want to take profits, then April 14th?
Yeah, I mean, I kept moving it back. I'm moving it back because I still see the rally has to have at least 2 to 3 weeks. So if we get to the 14th, that's just about 2 weeks of a rally. Again, I don't think it's going to go as high as we originally predicted, which is, again, it's almost like outside interference by a collective astral plane whammy that came through the war scenario.
So then, originally, did we predict that April will be very bullish, or just?
I said probably if it had started in mid-March, we would go until about April 4th. I always saw 3 weeks of a very upward trajectory. Now that the March market was interfered with, we have less time to get to a higher level, so it may not go as high. I mean, I still think there'll be some surprises, and certain coins may have a bleed through into May, which will be quite unexpected, but it's because they have some planetary aspects that are being boosted despite the fact the rest of crypto looks like it's not going to rally really again until late summer, September, October.
That's quite late.
Yeah. Summer's going to be interesting. It's going to be a little bit up and down, up and down.
So then April 30th, there's eclipse. So is this the eclipse that is as severe as the one in December?
You mean the one last year in November? We had two. We had one on November 19th and December 4th. So what's happening this year? This year it's happening in reverse. We had the lunar eclipse of November 19th, 2021, and the solar of December 4th, which basically kind of rein things in a little bit with the crypto. This year we have April 30th, which is a solar eclipse in Taurus, and May 16th, which is the full moon lunar eclipse, which is much more malefic. But the solar eclipse is in Taurus. Taurus can sometimes be a tightening of a belt energy, or it may be people start getting a little worried about future security and pull back. I'd be surprised if we have a lot of upward during early May because of the lunar eclipse, which will be quite this whole thing with inflation and prices, people are fed up with that. That's what's we're going to kind of see what do we have going forward from the 30th on. Then we have the full moon lunar eclipse, which is going to be a little bit economically dire, but it's also going to be a shifting of attention to the next control agenda of 3D. And I predict it's going to show up again as, economically and other control agendas, i.e. touting the vaccines and variants. So nobody likes that.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So then there might not be a crash in April, right? It's just probably from the 15th onward until the end of April, there may be like a corrections, and then the
yes.
crash will be in May.
Yeah,
I
I feel like more of a crash from that eclipse of the 16th of May forward. Again, in a previous podcast, I saw things rallying though by the end of June. Like this, it won't get really high in the summer. It'll be kind of like, it won't be like down, 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 but it won't get to some of the highs that people are waiting for. Then I see September, things taking off. There is a Mercury retrograde cycle through most of September, but I kind of don't think that's going to interfere. It's all about finding balance. It's going to be Mercury retrograde in Libra. So we're going to see seesawing. And then early October feels like it's going to be really, really good and making up for lost time here. And I still feel like any interference by the government trying to regulate or do any of that has been postponed. So it's still this Wild West that we've talked about. I thought that'd be cut out by the summer, but now new indicators. And again, with astrology, we always have to look at, here's the astrology, but here's what's going on with the collective and with people's consciousness. They're in a place of fear. They're kowtowing to control agendas. So we're not going to see the growth that we would see or is potentially there in prosperity and in consciousness. So we're dealing with a lot of that right now. In other words, there's a lot of interference in the force. There's a disturbance in the force.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. There's a lot going on in the current events, war, economy, and the news. There's so much going on.
Right. If people don't have money, then they're easier to control. So there's a lot of looking at how can we get people to do what we want and have them reliant on us. It's an old third dimensional paradigm that is dying hard.
So in March, beside you and Susan, there are a few other astrologers predict that March is very bullish. So in the BTC chart, can you see something that is there some mixed astrological information?
Well, in general, what happens is we had some good aspects astrologically, and then we had some difficult ones. For instance, the planetary war ended up being more difficult than we had originally thought that it would be. We thought we were going to get some more love from Jupiter and Pisces with other abundant type of influences, but they were trumped by the planetary war of Venus and Mars. in Aquarius. So this is what happens. I mean, I may be no Nostradamus nor a Cryptodamus, but I've been reading astrology charts for a very long time. And so sometimes as an astrologer, you may favor what look like the good astral aspects and you want to support those as being the reality to play out and tone down the negative. But some astrologers might want to focus more on the negative. And in the Vedic astrology community, there's some astrologers who do amp up the negative, and some of their colleagues would call them alarmist. So I think it's always good to try to keep people out of fear and give them optimism. Now, what was looking favorable for Bitcoin that we thought was really going to bring it up was the fact that Jupiter was going through the 8th house of Bitcoin, which is an expansion of money, and it was coming over its Uranus, so it was an unexpected boon. However, the planetary war did go over some of the Aquarian planets in the Bitcoin chart, thus limiting that potential Jupiter expansion over its Uranus, which is still going on. I mean, we still will see this in late March and early April, Jupiter through the Bitcoin 8th house of money expanding, and now the planetary war is over. So we can't say that that window is closed. It's just that sometimes astrologically, we see these windows of opportunities by transits of the planets, and sometimes they will take right away, and sometimes it hits you as the door closes, and you get the good or the bad or the ugly as the door closes to that transit. This is true in people's personal charts. So there's a time period of activity, but it could percolate or actually come to a head at any point. And so there's the issue with accuracy, and it takes years of reading and kind of sussing out. And I wanted to also say something to the listeners. It's very different to read people's charts or a chart for a person than a chart for, let's say, a crypto coin or for the whole crypto market. I've had years of reading charts of people, like thousands and thousands. And with people, you're dealing with an individual consciousness. When you're dealing with something like a crypto coin, you're dealing with a whole group consciousness, which sometimes can resonate with the lowest common denominator, which may be fear about growth or expansion, and so that's what takes out the trajectory as moving faster. I don't know if people understand that, but it's kind of like, yes, astrology is a science, but it's also an art. And so sussing out a crypto coin is very interesting because organically, as in the case of Bitcoin, it was a good Jupiter cycle. However, we had outside interferences that interfered or got in the way of this potential expansion in March for Bitcoin, which we sometimes use Bitcoin to read the whole market.
Yeah, I think with astrology, people said that, oh, it's the star and the moon. People should have come to the same conclusions. But I find that interpretation make a big difference.
Right. And is this going to happen at the beginning of a particular lucky transit, or will it happen at the end? And then again, in this case with Bitcoin, I think we're going to grab some of it here at the end of the Jupiter to the 8th house, which is the early part of April.
What does it mean?
Oh, well, 8th house is money's coming in, and it's just it's a good money transit. Let's just put it that way. Let's simplify. It's a good money transit for Bitcoin.
Okay, thank you for that. I have a couple of dates that my member would like to ask. What's going on March 29 in terms of like astrology for Bitcoin?
Yeah, so March 29th for Bitcoin is, again, there's a lot going on in its 7th house of people or investors. So that's pretty good for it. It also is having Pluto there's a lot of Jupiterian activity, which again is expansion. Pluto's coming over the natal Jupiter of Bitcoin. So this looks like a very good date. And the moon will be coming over the natal Venus of Bitcoin. So if people are thinking correction, again, I'm going to be optimistic and jovial Jupiter and say, no, this could be a little bit of a boom, a little bit of a burst.
Okay. And then earlier we said that the 5th, there'll be a correction.
Right. 4th, again, here we go, mixed bag, really nice Venus transit into Pisces, but it may be offset by the Saturn-Mars conjunction, which in astrology, Saturn, Mars are both considered malefic planets, and them being together could throw a little wrench into the crypto upward trajectory.
Then if people want to take some profit, April 14 is the last day. Then from the 15th into the end of April, you predict that the market will have corrections. But sometimes the market doesn't correct every single day. There will be like some day that go up,
Right.
some day go down.
Ups and downs, ups and downs. That's what I see. The new moon solar eclipse on the 30th will show some indicators. Those 2 weeks are so important between the 30th of April and May 16th, because we will get some glimpses into like, what's going to be going on going forward. And it does set up a 6-month cycle that will peak again at the end of October and early November. And so what happens is after these eclipses, as we saw in November, the 3 months after, so let's say the 3 months from December 4th, 2021, which would take us to December, that takes us to like March 4th. It was pretty slow, okay? With the crypto, March was a little bit up and down and not as expansive as we had originally predicted. So we might see the same thing where for 3 months after April 30th, that's May, June, and July, things are not as flowing as they would be. And then 3 months leading until October 25th, August, September, October, things start picking up again.
Okay. The full moon is on May 16. When does the crash or correction in May will occur?
So the problem with May is right before the eclipse, we have Mercury retrograde on the 10th, and then it stays retrograde for the rest of the month.
Okay.
So that's going to inhibit May, any growth in May between Mercury retrograde and the eclipses. It's a double whammy.
Oh, yeah, seriously. Then how big is this correction based on astrology?
You know, I don't think we're going to go below what we've seen previously. The problem with what's happening is people are expecting the growth, and, you know, crypto is now much more mainstream, lots more investors, a lot more energy. And so it was disappointing to see that it hasn't rallied more. But I don't think it going down to low levels. I mean, I don't think it's going to crash. But it's just going to be disappointing because it's not going to be going up for a while. It's like up and down, up and down. And for those who really want big profits, they're going to have to wait a little bit longer again.
Okay, I see. Then my spirit guide provides some Bitcoin prediction where the market will like have a pullback as well. So they provide 30,000, and if Bitcoin drop below 30, we could see 28K. They have some other lower price. I don't know when. Maybe that's for the bigger crash. So if May is just a crash, but not a really major crash, then we will see how low it will go.
Well, we still have Pluto operative on the Bitcoin Jupiter. So, you know, with Bitcoin, what we're seeing in the months of March, April, May, June through July, it's a death, transformation, and then rebirth. So after July, we're going to start seeing a rebirth. So it's still, if we're looking at May, we're still kind of in the death pattern. Although it's been, you know, and I'm meaning like not going to the next level, but not going to the next level, in other words. So it's going to be a bit stagnant as far as growth is concerned.
So, Jill, what's going on with Shiba for the rest of the month in April?
Well, Shiba had Pluto over at Saturn, and so that restricted some kind of restriction, but it's been slower to rally than we expected. When we have planets going into Aries in early April, that's going to help Shiba a lot because Mars is in Shiba, Mars is located at the top of its chart out in the public. So Shiba is going to get some attention. Shiba's going to rally. Shiba isn't currently under any negative transits. So this is why, and Saturn's going to harmonize with the Venus of Shiba. So I think Shiba's ready to to launch again, and it's been interfered with somehow by the planetary war and war. But I do think that Shiba's going to be rallying and coming. As far as the levels, Saturn trine Venus is a very, very nice transit, but again, things are not going as we would predict them to organically. But that all being said, I think Shiba's going to get a nice boost here in early April. And there may even be some leak over into the end of the month of April with Shiba, just because it's got such nice Saturn feeding Venus transit happening that I could see. And then I think in the summer, Shiba's going to get a nice boost as well, too, in July and August. So it's kind of an erratic trajectory with Shiba, like good in April, a pullback, and then another boost coming in July.
Then which means that from like the 1st of May into beginning of April of July, Shiba sort of like...
Shiba might be okay in early May, weirdly enough, only because before Mercury goes retrograde on the 10th, we've got the Mercury in Gemini helping Venus and the North Node is Shiba. So Shiba could do some things that are a little confounding for people, like how is this still rising when everything else is sort of leveled out? Okay. So Shiba could be doing some things a little bit different than the other. I always say that it does things a little bit differently. Yeah, it's been slow to rally, but there's been some disturbances in the force.
Yeah, I have no concern about Shiba. It's once it's rally, spike
it's
really
going to
fast.
keep, and then it could even have, like I said, bleed through into early May when most of the other coins have leveled off. Shiba's still going to be rallying. My guest is SL-369. Stay tuned when she shares her hot tips for crypto coins to invest in. Welcome back with SL-369, Cryptocurrency Clairvoyant. Here's the part of the episode everyone's been waiting for. SL, what coin should people perhaps invest in or take a look at in April and the rest of the year?
So the first coin that people should buy when the market have a pullback and keep it for a long term is Digibyte, XRP, Ethereum. So Ethereum right now is $3,300, but this coin will continue to do really well this year and next year as well when Ethereum 2.0 launch. But I see in a gut prediction that this one will go over $10,000. Don't know how many years it will take, but it will do really well. We need anyone who missed owning one Bitcoin and they want to own a few Ethereum. Ethereum is still affordable. It's only $3,300 when the market has a pullback. It's a good time to buy. Then the next one is Zilliqa. Zilliqa had a partnership with Facebook. So yesterday it spiked up by 60%. So my spirit guide told me that Zilliqa would go to 23 cents. And I don't think that's like the highest price for this year. So that's the start. And if Zilliqa have pullback, it could go below 10 cents again. The next one is Luna, Taylor Lunar. I really like this one. It has a strong team. My group has been looking at it. Near Protocol. This one will grow like a mountain. Matic, they've been telling me for the past couple of days as well. Cosmo is now a good coin. Polkadot, AVAX, Theta, TFU, and VChange. Oh, Doge. Dogecoin this year will do well when Elon's mentioned it again. I have 40 cents for Doge. So that's just the tips of the iceberg. I mean, I have the longer term prediction, I have over $10. It's like 3 figures. So Doge is a very good long-term coin. And whenever Shiba has major corrections, people should buy a little. And then when it rises in July or maybe in the fall or winter, people can take some profits. It's a good coin, has a strong team. So these coins actually, will do well for April, and then throughout the year. There's a lot of other coin as well. So this is like long-term investment projects. There's some other coin as well, but just there's so many. If you want to have like a little portfolio, you can start out with this one.
Thank you, SL. So to just reiterate some of these coins that are good in the short term, April, but also projecting into the future are Digibyte, XRP, Ethereum, Zerlica, Terra Luna, Near Protocol, Matic, Cosmos, Polkadot, Theta, T-Fuel, Doji, Shiba, and AVAX. So check them out. And also VET, VeChain, VeChain, a new one. That's a new one. And we can't forget Shiba. So keep an eye on all those. They'll be written in the show notes so you can go back and refer. But this is great advice, SL. Thank you again for coming on Cosmic Scene. We appreciate your expertise and your energy.
Thank you for having me on today.
I hope you enjoyed this episode featuring my guest, SL-369. Make sure that you share this episode, subscribe, download, and give us a 5-star review. Write down those crypto coins that are going to be up and coming so you can make some profits. This is Cosmic Scene with Jill Jardine, sending healing cryptocurrencies through the quantum field.